When a routine traffic stop takes a surprising turn, a young officer's worst assumptions collide with a truth he never expected. His target? The man who holds his future in his hands. The evening sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the streets of Denver. Tyler Grant was on his way home after a long day at work, his sedan humming softly as he adjusted the air conditioning, eager to leave the day's stresses behind. The radio played softly in the background, offering a soothing antidote to the busy streets. He approached a yellow light, slowing down just as it turned red. That's when the blue and red lights flared up behind him, accompanied by the sharp blast of a siren. Tyler glanced in his rearview mirror, his brow furrowing slightly. He pulled over to the side of the road, rolling down his window, as a police cruiser parked behind him. Out stepped Officer David Mitchell, in his mid-30s with a buzz cut and a badge gleaming on his chest. Mitchell adjusted his belt as he strode toward Tyler's car, exuding the confidence of someone accustomed to having control. "License and registration," Mitchell said, his voice flat but carrying authority. Tyler complied, reaching into his glove compartment and handing over his documents. His movements were slow and deliberate, but he could feel Mitchell's eyes on him, searching for any reason to dig deeper. "Do you know why I pulled you over?" Mitchell asked, leaning closer to the window. "Not exactly," Tyler replied, his tone polite but measured. "You didn't come to a full stop at the light," Mitchell said, though there was a brief flicker of hesitation in his voice. Tyler frowned but nodded slightly. "I see. I thought I slowed down in time, but I understand." Mitchell didn't respond immediately. Instead, he lingered, his eyes narrowing as he studied Tyler more closely. This wasn't just a routine stop anymore. Not for Mitchell. His posture subtly shifted, and Tyler could sense the change in the air, as if Mitchell had already decided this was more than a minor infraction. Mitchell glanced at Tyler's license. "Not from around here, are you?" he asked. Tyler hesitated for a second before responding. "I moved here about 6 months ago. The address is on my license." But Mitchell wasn't really listening anymore. His questions were no longer about the stop. Tyler could feel the subtle shift in Mitchell's demeanor, the suspicion growing more palpable. "Where were you headed in such a hurry?" Mitchell asked, his tone now more insistent. "Just going home," Tyler replied, keeping his voice steady. The air felt heavier now, tension crackling between them. Mitchell didn't just see Tyler as a driver, he saw something else, something that made him more suspicious than he should have been. Tyler didn't flinch. His calm exterior wasn't a sign of weakness. It was control. This was just the beginning. Mitchell stepped back, folding Tyler's documents with exaggerated slowness. His expression shifted into something that looked almost smug. It was as though he had already decided who Tyler was. "Step out of the car," Mitchell ordered. Tyler's grip tightened on the steering wheel, but his face remained neutral. "Is there a reason for that, officer?" he asked, his tone measured. Mitchell's lips twitched, barely masking his frustration. "I asked you to step out of the car. You don't want to make this harder than it has to be." The threat was unspoken, but clear. Tyler exhaled slowly, opened the door, and stepped out. Mitchell's eyes swept over him, sizing him up. Tyler stood just slightly taller than the officer, his posture unthreatening but confident. His tailored suit hinted at a man who took care in his appearance, but none of that mattered to Mitchell. "Hands where I can see them," Mitchell commanded. Tyler complied, his movements still controlled. "Is there something you're looking for, officer?" Mitchell smirked. Routine. We've had some issues in the area. Can't be too careful. Tyler turned his head slightly, meeting Mitchell's eyes. Incidents involving men in business suits driving sedans, or does this have more to do with something else? Mitchell's composure faltered for a split second. He stepped back, visibly irritated. Watch your tone, he warned, his voice hardening. Tyler didn't back down. I'm just asking a question, he said quietly. There was no defiance, only a calm firmness that seemed to unsettle Mitchell. Mitchell took a step closer, his voice dropping to a near growl. You think you're smarter than me, huh? Think you can talk your way out of this? Tyler met his gaze without flinching. I don't think anything, officer. I just believe in fairness. And right now, I'm not seeing much of it. The words hung in the air, and Mitchell stepped back, his posture shifting as if he were reconsidering his approach. Tyler wasn't acting like most people. He stopped. There was no fear, no hesitation, just control. You seem pretty confident, Mitchell muttered, almost to himself, like you know exactly what's going to happen next. Tyler didn't bite. Confidence isn't the issue here, officer. Respect is. For a moment, the officer froze. His gaze flicked toward the front of the car as though searching for justification. The silence stretched, the air thick with unspoken tension. Tyler knew this wasn't just about the traffic stop anymore. Turn around and place your hands on the hood, Mitchell said. His voice clipped. I need to check for weapons. Tyler raised an eyebrow. Weapons, he repeated, incredulity creeping into his voice. Do I look like someone carrying a weapon? Mitchell's jaw tightened, and his hand hovered near his holster. I'm not going to ask you again. Tyler hesitated, but then turned, placing his hands flat on the hood. Mitchell approached him, patting him down roughly, lingering a little too long in places that didn't require it. You're clean, Mitchell muttered, stepping back. The admission sounded begrudging, like it was the last thing he wanted to say. Tyler turned, facing Mitchell again. Of course I am, he replied simply. But Mitchell wasn't done. You think you're smarter than me, huh? He growled. Tyler didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his pocket, pulling out his wallet and flipping it open. Inside was a badge. Tyler Grant, Tyler said, his voice calm. Head of Internal Affairs. I'm here to make sure officers like you are held accountable. Mitchell froze. His jaw dropped slightly as his eyes flicked between Tyler's badge and his face. What? Mitchell stammered, his voice cracking. You heard me. Tyler replied, his tone quiet but filled with authority. Tyler's words hung in the air as Mitchell stood frozen, staring at the badge in disbelief. Your internal affairs? Mitchell muttered, his voice cracking with the realization. Tyler didn't answer right away. Instead, he let the silence stretch between them, the tension palpable. Mitchell's hand hovered near his holster, as though unsure whether to act, unsure whether he should challenge Tyler further or retreat. You were profiling me, Tyler continued, his voice steady but piercing. Mitchell swallowed hard, his eyes darting back and forth between Tyler's face and the badge. You're a cop, Mitchell asked, as if it was a foreign concept, as though Tyler's presence was an anomaly that didn't belong in the scene they had just played out. Tyler smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in it. That's right, officer. I'm your supervisor, and you just made a huge mistake. The air around them seemed to still, the sound of the traffic in the background fading into nothingness as the weight of Tyler's words settled in. Mitchell took a step back, his posture stiffening as the reality of the situation began to hit. He hadn't just made a simple mistake. he had escalated an encounter in a way that could cost him everything. For the first time, Mitchell looked uncertain. His gaze dropped to the badge in Tyler's hand, then back to his face, searching for any sign that this was some kind of elaborate joke. But Tyler wasn't joking. There was no humor in his expression, only the quiet authority that came with knowing exactly how the system worked and how easily it could be manipulated. "You've been profiling people like me, officer," Tyler said calmly, his eyes narrowing slightly. "But now you're going to answer for it. You're going to answer to the department." Mitchell didn't respond. His lips parted, but the words didn't come. The officer stepped back, his eyes darting nervously toward his patrol car, then back at Tyler as if searching for a way out. But Tyler wasn't offering one. "Your actions today won't be ignored," Tyler continued. "I'm not just here to enforce the law. I'm here to make sure that it's applied equally to everyone. You've broken trust today, Officer Mitchell, and now you're going to pay for it." Mitchell's hands trembled slightly as he reached for his radio, but the motion was slow, almost as though he was waiting for Tyler to stop him. But Tyler remained still, unflinching. "You're making a huge mistake," Mitchell finally muttered, his voice almost pleading. "You don't know who you're dealing with." Tyler smirked, a quiet, knowing smile. "I know exactly who I'm dealing with. A man who thinks his badge gives him power over everyone else." Before Mitchell could respond, Tyler held up a hand. "We're done here." Tyler stepped back toward his car, his movements deliberate, as though he had already made up his mind about what was coming next. Mitchell's eyes followed Tyler's every move, his thoughts racing as he realized he had lost control of the situation, lost control of everything. Tyler got into his car, his hands steady as he gripped the steering wheel. As the engine roared to life, he looked over his shoulder at Mitchell, who was still standing there, rooted to the spot. "You'll hear from me again, Officer Mitchell," Tyler said, his voice calm but firm. "And next time, you won't be so lucky." As Tyler drove away, Mitchell stood in place, his heart racing, the weight of Tyler's words sinking in. His mind was spinning, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Later that night, Tyler sat at his desk in the Internal Affairs office, the faint hum of his computer filling the silence. The city was quiet outside, but inside his office, the files in front of him were anything but. The case against Officer Mitchell wasn't over, not by a long shot. Tyler clicked through the report on his computer, his eyes narrowing as he read over the officer's history of complaints, unreported incidents, and unexplained escalations. Mitchell wasn't the only officer in the department with a history like this. Tyler knew that much. He'd seen the patterns before, had even investigated them. The system had turned a blind eye to too many officers like Larson, but Tyler wasn't about to let that happen anymore. "Time to shake things up," he muttered to himself. He picked up the phone, dialing a number that could change everything. "Linda, get me a meeting with Chief Daniels tomorrow," Tyler said. "I need to speak with him about something urgent." The phone line clicked, and Tyler leaned back in his chair, his thoughts racing as he prepared for the fight ahead. This wasn't just about one officer anymore. This was about rooting out the corruption that ran deep in the department. Tyler knew this was going to be a long battle, but he wasn't backing down. He couldn't. The phone rang again, cutting through his thoughts. "Porter," Tyler answered, his voice sharp. "Tyler, it's Chief Daniels," came the voice on the other end. "I need to speak with you. Something's come up." Tyler's heart skipped a beat. "What is it, Chief?" he asked, his voice steady but tinged with concern. You might want to sit down for this, Daniels said, his tone grave. We've got a problem, and it's bigger than we thought. Tyler's mind raced as he listened to Chief Daniels' voice crackling over the phone. You might want to sit down for this, Daniels warned, his tone heavy with concern. We've got a problem, and it's bigger than we thought. Tyler's heart sank. What's going on, Chief? Daniels took a breath, clearly weighing his words. It's about Officer Mitchell, Tyler. His record. It's worse than we realized. There's a pattern, and it's not just him. We're looking at a larger issue in the department. The weight of the revelation hit Tyler hard. This wasn't just one bad officer. It was a systemic problem, a cancer that had quietly spread through the ranks. And now it was time for it to be exposed. I've already started an investigation. Daniels continued. We're looking at multiple officers who've been acting with the same biases, same tendencies. We've got reports of excessive force, racial profiling. This goes back years. Tyler leaned back in his chair, taking a moment to process everything. He had suspected corruption, but to hear it confirmed was both a blow and a call to action. It was his job now, not just to investigate Mitchell, but to clean house, to hold the department accountable for the harm it had caused. You can't fix it overnight, Tyler said, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. I know, Daniels replied, but we've got to start somewhere. And we start with Mitchell. You've already made the first move. Now we need to see it through. Tyler hung up the phone and stared at the wall, his mind focused and sharp. This wasn't about one man or one interaction. This was about a system that had been allowed to perpetuate injustice for too long, and Tyler had just taken the first step in dismantling it. The following weeks were a whirlwind. Tyler worked around the clock, interviewing officers, reviewing reports, and speaking with the community. He pushed for transparency, demanding that the department face its darkest truths. The investigation led to a full-scale review of the department's policies, with Tyler spearheading the charge for reform. Mitchell, for his part, faced a formal hearing. Tyler was there, watching as the officer, once so confident, was now a shadow of himself, squirming under the intense scrutiny. The hearing resulted in Mitchell's dismissal, but Tyler knew the real victory wasn't in one man's downfall. It was in the foundation laid for lasting change. Months passed, and Tyler's work began to bear fruit. Internal affairs began to implement new training programs, and officers were held to a higher standard. The department started to regain the trust of the community, and Tyler found himself at the forefront of this transformation. One morning, as Tyler stood before a group of officers at a department-wide training session, he reflected on how far they had come. The room was filled with eager faces, ready to learn, to change, and to do better. Tyler spoke not just as an officer, but as a man who understood that true leadership wasn't about power. It was about integrity. Justice isn't just about enforcing the law, he said, his voice firm and clear. It's about ensuring that everyone is treated with fairness, dignity, and respect. We all have a responsibility to hold ourselves accountable to each other and to the community we serve. This badge is a privilege, but it comes with a duty, one we must never forget. The applause that followed wasn't just a sign of approval. It was a sign of hope. Tyler had started a ripple, and that ripple was growing into a wave of change. This story is a reminder that real change doesn't happen by staying silent. It's about standing up when the system is flawed, even when the odds are against you. Tyler could have walked away from the situation, but instead, he chose to confront the injustice, take responsibility, and push for reform. If we want a better world, it starts with accountability, transparency, and the courage to do what's right, even when it's hard. If this story made you reflect on the power of integrity and change, share it with someone who needs to hear it. The fight for justice doesn't end with one victory. It's a lifelong journey. Hit that subscribe button to hear more stories that inspire, challenge, and make us think about the world we live in. Because together we can make a difference.